Davey, 2 goals this afternoon and a win over Ayr to take us through to the quarters of the League Cup. How do you reflect on that 90 minutes?
Thought it was turgid first half, really lethargic, pretty negative. Tempo was quite slow. They sat kind of in a mid block and don't know. The patterns of playing that, I just thought it was too slow. We get the goal, which you think opens the game up. Didn't really open the game up. I think it actually had a negative effect on us. It was if we've got our goal now, we'll just keep passing the ball. There wasn't a lot of movement, there wasn't a lot of tempo, there wasn't a lot of intensity in our play. To be fair to the players, I had a wee bit of a nibble at half time because I wasn't happy in how we had approached the first half. And I thought the second half was a wee bit of night and day. I think the substitutions really helped the game in terms of wee Brucey, Jamie and Pittman. I don't mean that as a reflection on the boys that came off the park. I mean that more about the impact the players that went on the park had. And at half time I probably could have changed 5 or 6. But I thought the second half the boys were a lot better, applied themselves a lot better. The energy, the intensity, it felt like you were playing against a Livingston team again. So if I knew the answers to the first half, I'd probably be, how will I say? No, it's negative. But if coaches could put their finger on why these things happened, obviously they wouldn't happen in the first place. But I think just a wee bit slow, a wee bit passive, a wee bit negative, and I actually don't think the first goal helped us. Do you know that? Because I thought it gave us a foothold in the game, but we never really built on that. Probably had the opposite effect because I think Ayr went in a wee spell for 10 minutes after that goal. It maybe gave them a wee kick up the backside and they kind of got their finger out. So, aye, first half I would be writing into Dave Black and asking for your money back. Second half, I think the boys were decent in the second half.
After some of the results we've had against lower league opposition, particularly in cup competitions, past couple of seasons, is it pleasing to have it so comfortable in the end?
Yeah, I think it was a decent game. I think there wasn't much between the teams, but I thought we were always quite secure in the game. Does that make sense? We weren't at home. I felt it was at least 3 or 4 times on the counter on a turnover. We should have done a lot better, and what we did in the game should have become a little bit easier. Our execution in the final third at times on the turnover wasn't great on a kind of a counter attack. I think we had to look after the ball a little bit better than what we actually did. But I thought we were actually quite secure in the game at the same place. It wasn't as if Jamal came up with a big save at 2-0 to keep the game at 2-0, to keep a clean sheet, and probably to like to see the game out with a little bit more ease than what you would have done if Ayr United had managed to get a goal and bring it back to 2-1. They'd have through the kitchen sink it at that point. So Jamal came up with that big save. So clean sheet, 2-0 in the hat for the next round, and you only really need to look at the results, even like Stirling Albion and Aberdeen. I don't think you get an easy game in this. I really don't. I think Ross County's went to extra time. They were 3 each. So I don't think you get an easy game in this cup, and I don't think it's a reflection on maybe the Premier League clubs should win, and it's just what happens. It doesn't even look at Dougie at Ibrox today, Rangers 2-1. So I don't think, I've said this before, I've been pretty vocal on this. I think a big Premiership would be decent, 16 teams, maybe even a wee bit more. I do understand why it's not happened, but when you look at the teams such as even Airdrie to a certain extent, you've got Morton, Ayr United, and then look at Dundee United, Partick Thistles. There's some huge clubs in the Championship. I genuinely don't think there's a lot between the teams in terms of bottom 6 in the Premier League and maybe top 4, top 5 in the Championship. So it's a difficult game of football.
We're now potentially 90 minutes away from a return back to Hampden. As a manager, this must be the kind of exciting element of cup competitions, that you're there for into the latter stages and really where the kind of crunch is. Yeah,
obviously you want to go as far as you can in cup football. It was disappointing last year. We got knocked out at this stage last year with Dundee United, and we probably should have took something from that game. I think Sean Kelly had a left-footed free kick off the keeper's left-hand post late on to take the game to extra time. In the previous years we've had some big ties. Obviously we got to the final. There wasn't a lot of money in that, if I'm honest. There's a prize money, but there wasn't generally a lot of money in terms of the crowd. There was no crowds. The year before, big London here, Rangers put us out 1-0, but it generated 6 figures for the club. The year before last year was Rangers at Ibrox, is that right? Again, generated 6 figures for the club. Last year, we never generated, we never generated these 6 figures for the club. And so that was a huge dent out of your turnover, and for a club our size. We're not budgeting on getting to quarter-finals, but when you don't and you've been using the money in previous seasons, it's a huge miss when it comes into the new season. So to be able to get into the quarter-final, first and foremost, the most important thing is we're 1 game away from Hampden, and that's obviously the primary motive. But the secondary factor on that is you've hopefully generated a 6-figure income for the football club.
Back to league business next weekend as we visit Hibernian. A tough game probably in the off, and it would be fair to say totally different from today as well. How do you prepare the squad for that one? Same
way we approach every game. It doesn't matter who we're playing. It's League 2 or friendlies or whatever it is. We'll approach the training week in the same manner. That's us now into kind of a period where the boys are off the Sunday, they're off their Thursday, and we're in training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the next 6 weeks. We have been for the last 2 weeks. It lets you get a wee bit consistency into the players in terms of their gym routines and training methods. Albeit I think that'll change now, won't it? Because this will be a midweek game, the quarter-final. Is that right? So that'll go into a midweek game, so that'll throw one in. But just preparing the same way. We'll change the detail, the shape may change, the personnel within the shape may change, and the detail going into that game will change also. We don't just approach every game with the kind of same game plan, and this is what we're going to do. You go through certain elements of the season where you get a wee bit of momentum behind you, and you can do that at times. But I think when I looked at the fixture list at the start, I thought, I said, this is going to be really difficult. It's going to be 3 different games totally. You're Aberdeen at home, which is going to be a difficult game in terms of how they approach a game, and then you've got Rangers away, again totally different game, and then you're Easter Road away for Hibs, so again a different game. So I've had this in my head since the fixture list came out, how I'm going to approach these games depending on what the opponents are doing. But we've all kind of had a wee look at one another now, so we all kind of know what shape, system and personnel is going to be available. Hibs have got a huge game on Wednesday night, and we've got to try and use that to the best that we can. Obviously try and implement our game plan, be aggressive with Hibs, because it's a huge game for them on the Wednesday night, and we've got to try and use that to build that into our game plan.